I'm going to let you in on a little secret that no one seems to know about Black Lives Matter. Nobody thinks that Black lives don't matter. Nobody thinks that. Many people think that many other people think that Black lives don't matter. See, many people think that there are all these bad people who obviously aren't them, because we're all just such wonderful people. But there are many, many other really bad people who think that Black lives don't matter, and that's why we've got to post the black square to show all those really bad people out there that we know that Black lives matter. But the thing is, every single person thinks that Black lives matter. You know how you know that? Because of your Instagram feed yesterday, because of social media, because everybody was doing it. Black Lives Matter is not about convincing people that Black lives matter. Okay? Everybody is convinced of that. Everybody with any influence in anything believes that Black lives matter. Everybody, virtually everybody in government, media, virtually everybody in corporate America is actively promoting the Black Lives Matter movement, not even just the idea that Black lives matter. Black Lives Matter is not about convincing people Black Lives Matter. It's about pushing a radical agenda, radical leftist agenda that peddles lies. Black Lives Matter is founded on a lie. The foundational lie of Black Lives Matter is that there is an epidemic in this country of racist whites hunting down black men every time they leave their homes. That's what LeBron James said just the other day. And the specific lie of this is that it's racist white cops who are hunting down black men. The most specific version of this is Michael Brown. There was this lie that in Ferguson, Missouri, Officer Darren Wilson hunted down Michael Brown, who was completely innocent. He wasn't doing anything. He was down on his knees with his hands up, and he said, "Don't shoot." And that cold-blooded killer, Darren Wilson, killed him anyway. And none of that happened. We know that none of that happened. What really happened is Michael Brown robbed a store, reached into Darren Wilson's car, grabbed his gun. The gun went off. Michael Brown goes away. Then he turns around and charges back at Darren Wilson, and only then does Darren Wilson fire his gun. This is backed up by multiple autopsies. This is backed up by many eyewitnesses, black eyewitnesses. This is backed up by a grand jury report. The story that Black Lives Matter based its whole movement on is a complete fabrication, okay? Beyond that, we know the idea that there's this scourge, this epidemic of racist whites nationwide hunting down innocent black men isn't true. You can just look at the statistics. That simply is not the case. The specific lie that cops are gunning down innocent black men, also not true. There's a good piece on this out in the Wall Street Journal from Heather McDonald today. Here are the numbers from 2019, obviously the most recent numbers we can get. 375 million annual contacts between police officers and civilians. Police officers of all races, civilians of all races. In 2019, police officers fatally shot 1,004 people, most of whom were armed and dangerous, right? Because cops don't particularly enjoy going around shooting people, right? Even if you think that they're these psychopath cops, certainly they don't want to be caught up in a scandal, in some media firestorm, because they've had to discharge their weapon. A quarter of the people who were killed by cops in 2019 were black, which Heather points out is lower than the crime rate would predict. Police fatally shot 9 unarmed black men or 9 unarmed black people, but that's almost synonymous with men, and 19 unarmed white men in 2019. There aren't too many young girls going around committing, very violent armed crimes. Even unarmed here does not necessarily tell the whole story, because it includes a case such as this in Newark, New Jersey, of a guy who had a loaded gun in his car during a police chase. So was he unarmed when he was shot? I guess so, technically, but I mean, not really. They did have a loaded gun in the car during a police chase. We know, and this is a statistic that's going around for a long time, a police officer is 18.5 times more likely to be killed by a black man than vice versa. Now, what the media want to tell you is that they're going to peddle those lies. Then they're going to tell you the lie about the operation of Black Lives Matter itself, which is that the protests are completely different from the looting and the rioting and the arson and the assault and the murder. And the thing is, they're not. They're not. I'm not saying that there aren't peaceful protesters. Of course there are peaceful protesters. What I am saying is the so-called peaceful protests and the looting and the rioting and the arson and all of that overlap. They overlap almost perfectly What they're actually trying to tell us right now is that even though the looting and the arson and the riots and the murder is happening in the same place, at the same time, for ostensibly the same reason as the peaceful protests, they're totally different. That is simply not the case. Isn't it a weird coincidence, is what the media keeps saying? The peaceful protest unexpectedly turned violent. How many times does it have to happen before it's no longer unexpected? I'm no prophet, I'm no Nostradamus predicting the future, but I can guess that where most of this civil unrest is happening, there's going to be looting and riots and arson. The final nail in the coffin of this lie that the protests are completely peaceful, Black Lives Matter totally peaceful, and then, there are a couple bad apples who just happen to burn down a lot of American cities. They're a rare exception. They don't characterize the movement. Actually, the final nail in that lie came from the celebrity, Idris Elba, the actor Idris Elba, who posted his square, and then he wrote this quote, "This ain't a movie, ain't callin' cut. We cutting the throat of the old system, so if you ain't with us, then you better run. New breed." I don't know where this poetry comes from. I'm not sure. It's probably not Wordsworth or something, but he posts this line of very violent rhetoric. Now you might say, Michael, it's just a metaphor, because he says he's cutting the throat, sure, but he says he's cutting the throat of the old system. So he's not cutting the throat of people, it's the old system. Yeah, except in the next line he says, so if you ain't with us, you better run. Run from what? Why are we going to run? Oh, because all of this rhetoric is incredibly violent. If you enjoyed that break from the disinformation, the historical revision, and the screaming about the end of the world, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss another video.